Suggestions for Students of Psychology. Part 2. Analysis of Man. 1. Man. When we examine ourselves and our environment, we perceive that we are able to produce changes in our states of mind and in the material conditions surrounding us. By moving an object from one place to another, we produce a physical change, which is the result of physical power or force which we have exerted. If we compare the states of mind before and after the act, we find that a change has been produced in our mental condition. At first, we contemplated the object in its relation with other objects and were displeased. Then we mentally rearranged the objects according to our taste or convenience and desired to see them so arranged. Finally, we directed the forces of the body to make the change, and when it was effected, the mind became pleased and satisfied. So, we have exerted mental power to change our own states of mind. We observe also that after we have produced a change in our environment, those who share it with us manifest signs of changes in their states of mind. From this, we infer that the changes produced by one individual may be the occasions of changes in the mental states of other persons. This inference is verified by our own experience, for we find that the changes produced in our environment by others occasion activities in our own minds. Power exerted in such a manner as to affect the mental states of other beings is called moral power. We are conscious that we are the cause of the limited physical, mental, and moral activities which we have exerted, and also that we are related by means of these activities with other intelligence. We are therefore finite spiritual beings possessing physical, mental, and moral power. Man is that finite spiritual being who is conscious of exerting mental, moral, and physical power. The soul. When we say that we are conscious of the ability to exert mental, moral, and physical power, we think also of that in us which directs these powers, which must be superior to them. Since it is the cause of all his activities, it is the spiritual being in man. It is called the ego or soul. The soul is that spiritual being in man which is the cause of his mental, moral, and physical activities. Through all changes of mind, body, and environment, the soul remains unchanged. This persistence of the ego leads to the idea that while the mind and body of man, like his environment, change and disintegrate, his soul is immortal. The substance of the soul is the finest known to man, and it is known only through consciousness. It is in the highest rate of vibration, and its power is most fully organized. This power acts directly only through the spiritual substance which pervades matter and fills all space. But it acts directly through the intelligence of the mind and the forces of the body. The nature of the soul is to exert intelligence and force in such a manner as to establish through expression, communion with other souls, and through the expansion of its activities a greater degree of unity with the infinite power of which it is a part. The power of attraction acting thus in the soul is called love. It is the original impulse of all action. The power of the soul's love, seeking unity with other souls and with the universal spirit, causes vibrations to radiate in all directions as from a center. These vibrations travel freely through the spiritual substance which pervades the environment, but when the soul is brought into contact with the material substances and seeks expression through them, its power is limited by the laws which govern the forces resident in them. Therefore, the expression of the soul is limited by material laws, although the soul itself is superior to them. The mind. We have seen that our only knowledge of external powers is derived from the observation of the changes which they produce. We are only known by the changes which we produce. We establish our relativity with other beings by producing changes in the common environment and observing the changes produced by them. That power of the soul which directs the forces of the body in producing external phenomenon and interprets the presence of such phenomenon is called the mind. The mind is that power of the soul through which we realize our relativity with other beings. The chart represents the mind as a sphere enclosing the soul and enclosed by the external universe of matter. Through this mental sphere, all knowledge of the external universe is brought to the soul. Through it also the soul is expressed and made manifest through the changes wrought in matter by the forces of the body acting under the direction of the intelligence of the mind. The substance of the mind is a spiritual substance in a lower rate of vibration than that of the soul. It comes into direct contact with the electro-nervous fluid in the body, which is the finest material substance. Through this, it conveys the vibrations communicated to it from the soul, and through it receives the impressions transmitted from the material world through the senses. The body. The human body is an organization of material substances in which are embodied the forces by means of which the love of the soul and the intelligence of the mind are expressed. It is a very complex construction, including many lesser organizations and containing substances of all degrees of density, from the bones, parts of which are very compact, to the electro-nervous fluid, which is so delicate in its nature that science has been unable to define it, save by proving that it obeys the laws of electricity. The body is constantly consuming material substance and organizing the forces resident in them, which are used by the body to produce the physical phenomenon which expresses its activities. Through the agency of the vital forces resident in the electro-nervous fluid, the mind communicates with the forces resident in the grosser substances of the body and directs them. This fluid is found in all the nerves and nerve centers of the organism and is the medium through which the vibrations are conveyed from the periphery to the centers and from the centers to the periphery. The vital organs, which are constantly occupied in rebuilding the tissues of the body and organizing the forces found in the substances which the body consumes, are governed by the vital forces in the involuntary nerves. Through these forces, the mind maintains its connection with the body. They are indirectly influenced by mental conditions, especially by the emotions, but are not controlled by volitions of the mind. The nerves, which convey vibrations from the brain centers to the periphery, are called motor nerves. Through them, the volitions of the mind are carried out into expression. The nerves which convey vibrations from the periphery of the brain are called sensory nerves. They carry the vibrations received through the various organs of sense to their respective brain centers, where they enter the mind as impressions. Together with the organs of sense, they are called the sensorium. 2. Psychology. We have seen that the expression of the soul and its knowledge of the physical environment is modified by the condition and habits of its agent, the mind, and its instrument, the body. We shall now proceed to study those phenomena from which we have derived a knowledge of the mind, that we may train its powers to express the perfect divine being of the soul and to interpret the true beauty and significance of external phenomenon. Psychology is a knowledge of the powers of the mind and the laws of their activities. The phenomenon from study of which a knowledge of the mind must be derived, or of two classes, objective and subjective. The objective phenomenon comprise the physiological changes which accompany mental activities and the physical expressions of thoughts, emotions, and volitions. The subjective phenomenon consists of those states of mind of which are conscious when brought into relation with objects or subjects of thought. Material phenomena are called objects of thought. When we think of mental condition, an idea, thought, emotion, or volition, it is called a subject of thought. The objective phenomenon are valuable to the student of psychology only as they are interpreted in the light of a knowledge of the mind, previously derived from a study of subjective phenomenon. It will thus be seen that a primary knowledge of the mind must be derived from study of subjective phenomenon. End of Part 2. Analysis of Man.